The last of 3 qualifying playoff games to get into the Women's Concacaf Gold Cup takes place Saturday night. It's a late game, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, and it's El Salvador and Guatemala. El Salvador was 6-0-0 in League B, Group B. They scored 24 goals. They allowed just 2 in a group that had Martinique, Nicaragua, and Honduras, while Guatemala was second in League A, Group B. They were 1-2-1. They had 6 goals for and 8 goals allowed. They played alongside Panama and Jamaica. Now, the rankings and some stats between these teams. El Salvador are ranked 104th in the world, known as Las Cuscatlecas. Guatemala come in ranked 80th in the world, Las Chapinas. Head-to-head, all-time, Guatemala holds the all-time record between them at 7-0-2. However, El Salvador does have the most recent win when these teams played, and it was a very recent game. It was last summer at the CAC Women's Games where El Salvador won 2-1. Now, if you look historically at these 9 head-to-head matchups, even though they're going back many years, bets on both teams to score will be 7-2. There's been 3 or more goals scored in 8 of the 9 games, and there's been 2 or more goals scored in all 9 of their games. For El Salvador, they come into this tournament or this playoff game flying right now. They have 7 straight wins, and they've outscored their opponents 26-3 in those games. They've kept a clean sheet in 4 of those 7. They're also 11-1-3 in their last 15 games. They've scored a goal in 11 straight games and also in 14 of 15. And not just them scoring goals, but either team, there's 2 or more goals one way or another in 26 of their last 28 games. So there's very rarely no goals in an El Salvador game. For Guatemala, they come in mixed form. They're undefeated in 3 games. They're 1-3-0, but in the last 9 games, they have just 2 wins. They've scored a goal in 6 of their last 7, and there's been 2 or more goals in their games in 29 of the last 30. Odds makers have made El Salvador the favorites. They're the odds-on favorites, not by too much. They're minus 120. The draw is plus 300. Guatemala are underdogs at plus 225. They are expecting to see goals in this game, with over 2.5 being priced at minus 188, and the under 2.5 being plus 137. When we look at the best bet for this game, El Salvador is favored, but it was Guatemala who actually was playing in the higher qualifying group, being in League A versus League B. And Guatemala are the higher ranked team right now, but it's certainly El Salvador who come into this game in much better form. Both teams, though, are still a lower tier sides in the women's game, being ranked 80th and lower. It's very rare that El Salvador don't score a goal. They likely do win this game. They are the team in much better form, but Guatemala usually scores 2. It's something they've done in 17 of their last 22, and historically, like we talked about, there's usually goals between these teams. So let's make the best bet between El Salvador and Guatemala in this Gold Cup playoff game. Both teams to score. That will wrap up the final preview of the 3 qualifying playoff games on Saturday. Be sure to stay tuned to the channel and subscribe to see more CONCACAF Women's Gold Cup coverage next week.